And now it is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for tonight, my friend, the senator from the great state of New Jersey, Cory Booker. But to introduce Cory, I'm going to show you a slide. This is a slide, picture on the left of Cory Booker, and picture on the right. This is a man named Ryan Hill, who runs the KIPP schools in Newark. And I'm showing you this photograph because there's a small anecdote about these two, which perfectly illustrates how much Cory Booker values teachers. So Ryan Hill runs these high-performing schools in Newark, and every once in a while, Ryan has a bit of a problem when he wants to recruit somebody from out of state to come to Newark to teach, and Ryan felt he needed a little bit of help, a little bit of oomph sometimes to get those people to say yes. So Ryan had a deal with then Mayor Booker that Mayor Booker would place recruiting phone calls for Ryan Hill to get teachers to come to Newark. And Ryan told me on the phone last weekend that once this arrangement they had went a bit awry when Cory called a young woman who happened to be on vacation in Mongolia, and she was positive it was a crank phone call. Cory, on behalf of the whole Teach for America family, we are very honored to have you here tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Hello! All right! I played football in college, so I asked for a mic because if I feel like I stand too still for too long, I'll get sacked. But I am really thrilled to be here, and I have to tell you, I have been knowing Teach for America from virtually almost its inception, from friends of mine, we're core members. I got a chance to meet the extraordinary Wendy Kopp early in my career. But more importantly, as my life went on and I eventually became a mayor, TFA was like a shot of not adrenaline, but of spirit, of energy, of vision, and of love. And that's really all I want to talk about in the short time I have, is this idea of love. I feel very blessed to be here in Washington, D.C., not just because the extraordinary people of New Jersey gave me this chance to be here. I had a special election. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Chris Christie gave me my own personal election on a Wednesday in October. It's the most expensive gift I've ever gotten, a $24 million election of my own. I got a chance to replace a lion, the last World War II veteran, a champion of industry, a champion of service, the great Senator Frank Lautenberg, to fulfill his unexpired term. And I got to join with extraordinary human beings in the United States Senate. And it's still very hard for me to call any of them by their first names because I've been watching and cheering and leaning on a lot of these leaders for a long time. And I know one of those leaders is being honored today, but I just want to point out, because today was yet another victory when child care block grants got passed today. And I get to be the president of the Senate. I tell my friends that. They think that's really special. He's the president of the Senate. And I sit there and everybody calls me Mr. President. Yes. I get to recognize them. Yes, the senator from Iowa. And you feel all special. But the truth of the matter is that's the grunt job they give all the newbies. And I came into the Senate 101st in seniority because the leader Reed's chief of staff had more seniority than me. But I'm very honored that the man really who drove a bill that most Americans aren't going to know passed, but millions of Americans or hundreds of thousands of Americans will feel the impact of his work on this day alone, not to mention the incredible career here. Would you all please just give a round of applause as I give love to Senator Harkin. Senator. So real quick, that's all the reasons why I'm happy to be here in Washington, D.C., and especially happy to be here tonight. But there's another reason, and my brother who is here tonight, the better Booker, and his beautiful wife, Lucille, who's here tonight, my sister-in-law, they know the reason why I'm psyched. I have to say, I am the senator from New Jersey, but I was born in Washington, D.C. And last I checked, there's this incongruency that you're supposed to be able to, if you're taxed, you're supposed to be able to be represented, and something is wrong with that picture. And Senator, I know that you're retiring, but come on, man, you have a lot more power than me. Let's get D.C. statehood done before you leave. So this is a quick story, though, about why I am in love with Teach for America, and because of what Teach for America exhibits, which is a higher form of love. And it really goes back to my mom and dad. Now, my dad and mom are extraordinary people. I love listening to their stories because they tell the same stories over and over again for 44 years. I've listened to them. But it's great to listen to them because my mom, when she tells a story, I learn something every new because she has such a penchant for accuracy and detail. I pick something up every time she speaks. And my dad, when he tells a story, I love listening to it because he has this penchant for hyperbole and exaggeration. And every time he tells a story, it gets more exciting. The weather patterns where he grew up just like have gotten extreme over the years. I mean, the thunder and the hail the size of golf balls, and then every ball in sports, eventually basketball-sized hail and beach ball-sized hail. And then he one day told me, son, began a story when the tsunami hit the town. And I'm like, Dad, you grew up in the mountains of North Carolina. There's no way a tsunami could have hit your town. And if you all have parents like mine, my dad is very resolute. He looks at me and says, boy, it happened. It was before the internet. You can't look it up, but it happened. And so my dad is the illustration of this love that I want to tell you about because my father was born poor. Now, he will say that he was not born poor. He will heckle me because over the years, he got more poor than poor. He said, son, don't tell those people I'm poor. I was po, P-O. I couldn't afford the other two letters. I was a po boy from North Carolina. And then my father was born poor, but born to a single mom. And you all know this, 71% of the kids born in the city I represented for close to 15 years are born to a single mother and born around the poverty line. Extraordinary numbers of what's happening in America. But this is my dad's story. He told me that, son, when I was older, would say things like, son, you have no idea what people came together and did for me. Now, my dad is one of the hardest working men I know. I learned so much of my work ethic by watching him. But you see, my dad experienced what can best be described as a conspiracy of love at every step of his life. When his mama couldn't take care of him, there was people in this town that came together, made sure he had a roof over his head and food on the table. He went to a school with people who did not see him as he was, but saw him as he could be and would be and should be. And those expectations made my father reach for that vision. When it came time to go to college, it wasn't something my father could afford. No tradition of college, but it was people in that town who put dollar bills together to help him afford his first semester's tuition, a church collection plate. What is the ROI on those people who gave dollars so that my dad could access college? Unbelievable love. And then my parents land in college, both of them right during the civil rights movement. Now, I have to tell you, at that time, they witnessed that conspiracy. Black people and white people, Christians, Jews, Muslims, coming up, young people from far afield coming to the South to fight for civil rights, for voting rights, for human rights. People who understood that the truth of America is not simply that we have a declaration of independence, it's that we have a declaration of interdependence. We all need each other. As a nation, we evidence that great African idea that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And there folks were. My mom tells me these stories with the sacrifice. In fact, one time, as my mom would say, I got too big for my britches because I was invited to be the commencement speaker at her university, Fisk University, on her 50th reunion, getting an honorary degree. I was the mayor. I walked down there with swagger. Senator Harkin hasn't seen my swagger walk yet because I'm too low in seniority, but one day I will walk in the Senate with swagger. I'm talking John McCain type swagger. And so I'm walking in there, and this banquet table honoring the doctoral, honorary doctoral recipients, and I'm Cory Booker, I'm the mayor, I'm the honorary. I'm sitting down at the table, and I don't know this power. I think many mothers have it, that no matter how old your child gets, in an instant, you can make them feel like they're 9 again. And so my mom comes over to me and says, "Get up." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Get up, boy, get up." And she starts pulling me out of the chair, and I'm pulling back. I'm like, "Mom, I'm the mayor. Come on." And she starts taking me around to the tables and says, "You need to meet this person. This is a person that led our student protests of the places that weren't serving blacks. They were being threatened to be expelled, but they still did it. Here's the person that led our voter registration drives back in the days where people were dying. Goodman, Cheney, Schwerner." And so as if she was snapping her fingers and saying, "You don't know these people's names, but they're a part of that conspiracy. Their love is why you are here right now." When my parents moved to Washington, D.C., unbelievably, my mom and my dad met. My dad had the luck and good fortune to marry my mom. My mom had the charity and mercy to marry my father. And what was going on? My mom was working in the D.C. public schools. During that summer, she took time off, volunteering to work on the March on Washington. My father's opportunity expanded because of activists, black and white, Christian, Jewish, through organizations like the Urban League, fighting to get companies to hire blacks. I don't care if you're Irish or Jewish. At some point in this country's history, they didn't want you. But yet it was activism that opened up doors, and before you know it, my father becomes one of the first blacks hired by Sinclair Oil Company, one of the first blacks hired as a buyer by Woodruff and Latham, and then both my mom and dad got hired by this small tech company, IBM. And now they're succeeding. They get promotions up to the New York City area, look for homes, but guess what? They find out that in white neighborhoods, they weren't showing blacks homes. And they kept getting turned away, telling us that houses were sold. And so they found in the town a house they loved, told it was sold. They went to the Fair Housing Council. A group of conspirators formed an organization to change America, one neighborhood at a time. And my parents went to the house. They were told it was sold. The Fair Housing Council sent a white couple to the house. It was still for sale. The white couple put a bid on the house as if they were my parents. The bid was accepted. On the day of the closing, the white couple didn't show up. My dad did. And a volunteer activist lawyer, he walked in there with swagger, went up to the real estate agent and said, "You're in violation of New Jersey fair housing law," explained the whole scam and how that we got them in a sting operation. And the real estate agent stands up and doesn't just accept what's going on. He gets angry, punches my dad's lawyer in the face, sigs a dog on my dad. Now I tell you, every time my dad tells a story, the dog gets bigger. He now says, "It was Stephen King's Cujo." My mom looks down and says, "It was just Dorothy's Toto, Cory." But that's how I moved into a town called Harrington Park, New Jersey, as my father affectionately called us, 4 raisins in a tub of vanilla ice cream. One generation. One generation. Not because simply my father worked hard, he did. Because he was disciplined. God bless America, he was. Not just because he had grit and the ability to intellectually process ideas. All those things are true. But let's just be clear. I am where I am because of lovers in North Carolina, lovers in Washington, D.C., lovers in New Jersey who understood the highest form of human expression is service to others, because not only do you improve humanity, your community, your neighborhood, your state, your nation, the world, but it's the highest form of self-interest. Because when somebody else's child does well, like my dad in North Carolina, you're affecting generations yet unborn who will ultimately contribute to you. As my dad says, you can't pay it back, son. Pay it forward. And it's going to keep coming around like a virtuous circle. And so when my father was to watch me walking around my house with 18-year-old swagger, I was president of my class, high school American football player. I thought it was something special. And I'd be standing in the fridge, looking in, close the door, and my dad would be standing there. I said, what do you want? He goes, boy, don't you dare walk around this house like you hit a triple. You were born on third base. Prove worthy. Prove worthy. I'm a United States Senator. My parents taught me so early, titles don't make men or women. It's men and women that make titles. And the title tonight that I celebrate is the title that this organization is helping to elevate, that title of teacher. On an economic analysis, it is the most economically impactful job in America, because you can't have any other job without somebody that taught that child. And in the idea of this nation, that so many people stand up almost as if rote routine, but they're making a pledge for God's sake. They are pledging their sacred honor when they put their hand on their hearts and say those words, liberty and justice, not just for some, not just for those who live in some neighborhoods, but liberty and justice for all. When you say that, it should mean something. It should demand something from you. But we live in a nation now where people aren't willing to pay that price. They think democracy is a spectator sport. And there's a lot of people upset about the way things are. I call it the state of sedentary agitation, where folks sit on their couch and get so upset about what they're seeing in the world, but not realizing that they can do something about it. As a mayor in Newark, I saw some of the brightest, inspired, energetic young people making that difference. Seeing every one of my children like they were my father. Seeing in my kids the truth of who they were, the dignity, the honor, the beauty, the grandeur. Seeing the fate of our nation lying before their eyes. Would our country be true and real, or would it be a lie? I tell you all this as a way to get back to something that's been heavy on my heart. I was elected in October. Senator Harkin remembers this. I don't know what kind of message Senator Reid was trying to send me, the leader, but he decided that I'd have my swearing in on Halloween. Senator Harkin, I thought it was like a trick-or-treat moment for my life. 6 days before I was elected, my father died. And to Harry Reid's credit, in the final days of my dad's life, he went to my dad's bedside in Nevada and sat with him. I think about my dad a lot when I first stepped on that Senate floor and realized I didn't get there by my own making. That there were generations that worked to get me to this moment. And the only way to prove worthy of it was to try to not make my dad's worry real. What was my dad's worry? My father visiting me one day when I was still living in some high-rise projects in Newark looked out the window and said, "Son, I really worry about your generation. You see, my generation, the one before me, made it such that a child born poor to a single mom in a segregated neighborhood had a good chance of making it. I worry that today a child born under the exact same circumstances has an even harder or more challenging time than I did. I'm telling you right now, that is not, cannot, and shall not be the truth of America that our generation knows. That's going to be the test. Can we as a people understand that the greatest natural resource this nation has isn't oil, gas, or coal? It is our children. And genius is equally distributed, that most valuable of human spirits, the genius that you see in an artist, in an entrepreneur, in a teacher, that genius is equally distributed. Just as many geniuses are being born in Beverly Hills or Summit as are being born in Newark or Anacostia. And it is our duty as Americans, understanding our interconnectedness, understanding that truth that King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, that we're all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a common garment of destiny. We must know that our souls and destinies are determined by what happens with our children. And so I love Teach for America, because you all aren't just putting your hand on your heart in some routine of a way. You are pledging yourselves to making America real. That is the calling of this organization. Understanding our connectedness, our interwovenness, understanding that the conspiracy of love must be real. And so if you allow me, my brother and I had two parents that loved to read us literature. I'll never forget, and Carrie can remember this, all my friends were excited about watching Roots, and we were going to watch Roots miniseries, stay up late every night. And my mom's like, "You're not watching that till you read the book." I'm like, "Oh, Mom." Some of the teachers here are like, "Yay." So wonderful. I want to just end with this idea of pledging an oath and then introduce a truly extraordinary woman. And it's just the ending of one of my favorite poems, one of the things my parents turned me on to as a boy. And it's the end of a poem by a great man named Langston Hughes, where he asks us to swear that oath. And that simply is this. He says, "Oh, let America be America again. The land that never has been yet, but yet must be. The land where everyone is free. The poor man, the Indian, the Negro, me. Who made America? Whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain must make our mighty dream live again. Oh yes, I say it plain, America never was America to me, but I swear this oath, America will be." Teach for America is making our nation live up to its truth and securing not just the dignity of our people, but the destiny of our children. And for that, I thank you. So let me thank you. Love you, man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.